So let's do a bit of an overview first, shall we? So what are we made up of? We've got our physical body, yes? So let's go. Our spiritual body and our soul. Let's put our soul like that. Or let's just draw it, instead of drawing it like that, I'll draw it as the half of the soul that we actually are. And in this case, it's the man, so just half of the male soul. The feminine part of the soul, obviously, is the other half. So, and the physical body, spirit body. Where is our mind? Okay, so our mind is in the spirit body's mind. The brain in the physical body is just used as a tool for the mind to exercise. So there's the mind. But you notice that it's not the soul. It's not the real you. The real you is the soul. Now, if you consider that as the general thing, and so we do that, the mind of the spirit body for this side is in there as well. So that's the mind. When you use your intellectual reasoning, that's what you're using. Now, the problem that we have on Earth is that we get so used to using our mind to do everything that we start at a very, very young age tuning out of our real emotions and the feelings that are in our soul. So what finishes up happening is during the times we're growing up, eventually our mind overcomes our feelings and emotions so much that in the end we don't feel our emotions very well by the time we become adults. And a lot of the times we have no idea what we're really feeling, and we've got to sit and let ourselves feel before we even can discover what we're really feeling, because our mind has been used so much, it's so dominant, that to actually connect back to our feelings is a difficult process. So what I would like to do today is to talk more about how emotions work, why this is all very important for us to work through if we want to have a relationship with God and a relationship with ourselves. And also we want to speak about how do we determine the truth of an emotion, or the truth in any form. How do we recognise truth as a part of this process? Because a part of this process, of course, is understanding truth. Now, the reason why we're discussing the emotions, if we can talk about that first, is because the emotions are the beginning of understanding humility. And remember, in the process that we've been describing, you've got humility as your number one quality that we really need to develop if we're going to ever know ourselves and if we're ever going to know God. We need to have humility. Humility opens the doorway to our reception of truth. So truth is the next step, understanding the truth. Now, that's not just understanding the truth with our mind. That's actually feeling the truth with our heart. That's a part of the process. So we need to do that. And then once we do that, we can now unblock ourselves to the reception of love. So once we've opened our heart, which is the process of humility, opening our heart, and then we've opened our heart, now we have the ability to receive truth into our heart. And once we can receive truth into our heart, the truth helps us come to terms with what is the truth about ourselves and the truth about God and the truth about the universe. And in that process, we can then long for love and receive some. But if we haven't got that openness in our heart, then it's impossible to receive that love anyway. And it's our soul, this part of us here, that is the functional part that does all of this, not our mind. And most of us still usually begin with our mind rather than beginning with our soul. And after you progress on the divine love path for a long period of time, generally you start getting to this point where it switches over or around, and no longer are your thoughts the dominant thing in your life, but rather your emotions are. And you start realising that your emotions drive all of your thoughts, actually. And this is why psychologists have come up with this concept of subconscious. The reason why they view it as your subconscious driving your actions is because there is a heavy suppression of the emotion. And when there's a heavy suppression of the emotion, you are now using your mind thinking that you're logical, but the reality is that your mind is still being heavily dominated by the emotions that you're suppressing. So therefore, oftentimes we're not as logical as we'd like to believe in our mind, because our soul, our emotions, which are inside of our soul, drive a lot of our experiences still. So what we would like to do is understand that becoming humble means becoming humble to what we really feel, not what we would like to believe we feel. They're two very, very different things. What we really feel and what we'd like to believe we feel are completely the opposite in many cases. So you see this very much when you meet some people who have been in religions for many years. They have a very strong opinion about what they are as a character, and yet quite often, right in that same moment, they can be almost as unloving as a murderer can be. In fact, religiously, if you look over the entire world, there are many times that religions drive people to murder another person because they're not in harmony with their belief systems. Now, that tells you that their mind allows them to go ahead with that act, and yet if they were connected to their heart, they would never be able to go ahead with a murderous act. So there's something wrong. There's obviously some kind of discrepancy between what's really going on and what they think is going on. And this is why we need to discuss this subject quite in detail. So let's start with that. Now, I'm not suggesting in this discussion that we have to throw away logic. In fact, my feelings are that God gave us a brain, and God gave us also the spirit body's mind, which is capable of logical reasoning. So therefore, it is something that is necessary to be used in the discovery of truth. So you don't want to throw away your mind. You want to allow your mind to see what is really within your soul. And that's a very, very different process than throwing away the intellect altogether. So we're not suggesting that you all of a sudden just become a totally emotional being without any mental check on what your actions or anything might be leading you towards, but rather you need to come to terms with 3 or 4 primary things with regard to your mind. So let's look at with regard to the mind.